this hour, it still does continue on an education conversation. And as we're getting into that, we'll have two guests. One of them is already here. Former CAS, Zack Kinuthia is here with us this morning. Zack, good morning.
Good morning too.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
We'll also be joined by Emmanuel Manyasa, who also an education expert in his own right, and we'll be having that conversation when he does get here, but the conversation starts all the same. Zack.
Yes.
We have a proverb every morning. Siti's going to welcome you properly with that proverb today. If you have everything ready, then we're going to ask you how you would interpret it and what that proverb means to you.
Sure.
Fair enough?
Sure.
All right.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the People's Republic of Algeria. They have a population of 44 million, in case you didn't know it. They actually do. Interesting, isn't it?
Right.
Right.
Okay, just a minute, Siti. Let me just make sure that we can hear you around the world, even as we sort out your
haven't done that thing yet.
Okay, you're fine.
You've done it?
Done.
All right, fine. Now, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the People's Republic of Algeria. Okay? A population of 44 million. Of interest, it is a country in the Maghreb region of North Africa. They're going to ask me, what is Maghreb? All those things I will tell you in the course of the week, what it means, the relationship it has with the Sahara, etc., etc. And while we're at it, I will also tell you about the composition of the population. Yes, in addition to that, I will also tell you what it was that Algeria was known as long before the name Algeria came into being.
Okay.
All right. Now the proverb. The one whose belly isn't full of straw isn't afraid of fire. The one whose belly isn't full of straw isn't afraid of fire.
Zack, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much once again. I'll be following up to understand exactly what Maghreb would mean, but I would guess I know what Algeria was before civilization arrived. But let me go to the proverb.
Please guess. Tell me. What was it called before?
I think it was called hippo.
Hippo.
Hippo like hippopotamus?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it was called Numidia.
Numidia?
Yes. And
Okay.
the Arabic name for it, there are two names. There's Tamazight and Zayer. Those are the names that it had. Now, hippo may very well be a name. Whenever I say these things, I never claim to have the conclusive and absolute knowledge on these matters.
Countries have changed names since civilization.
And I am happy to always learn.
Yeah.
So now hippo is added, just like do added Cathay.
In the Christendom, you'll find that one of the church fathers, doctors of the church, was called Augustine of Hippo. Augustine came from Algeria, but then it was in Africa.
Okay.
It was still part of the Greco-Roman world. And it's, as you say, it's good to keep learning. But let's go to the proverb that one who is not afraid, or rather one who has no belly, straws in the belly is never afraid of the fire.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe literally that would mean bellies are supposed to feel fire. Literally, before you come to the symbolism of it, that because bellies are straws are associated with fire. Then if you have none, you have no fear of fire.
Yes.
Then that would mean if you are not guilty of things, you should not be afraid of being questioned. You should not be afraid of being held to account.
Yep.
If you have not been found in your hands into the cookie jar, there's nothing to be afraid about. So that's what I would go for. Mr. African Elder. If that would go.
Well, my friend, the key to this thing is your happiness and satisfaction.
Are you happy, Zack?
Begins and ends.
Yes. Once you've given your interpretation, we are happy.
Thank you.
Because that's what we wanted. Not what you think I know.
No.
Or what you think I think. It's what you think.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
So am I happy? That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just on the hippo, hippo is actually a city, the modern city of Annaba in Algeria. So it's a city. Oh. We're asking about the whole country.
Oh,
Algeria.
okay.
So hippo is a Nairobi. Annaba.
Annaba within Algeria.
Yes, within Algeria.
Okay,
Yes.
fair enough. Maybe that's what it was referred to.
Yeah.
Those because also Ethiopia would have been referred as Kush
Yes.
in the countries before.
Yes.
Countries have just been named by the civilization of the British Empire. British Empire really interfered with the names because some of those names also had been given by Ottoman von Bismarck.
No.
Yes.
No. The
Ottoman Empire.
The
Because
Ottoman Empire,
Algeria
yes.
was part of it.
Yes.
What happened to Uganda? They
Okay.
should have gone to Uganda.
Uganda, by the way, Uganda-
It's starting to sound like a history lesson.
It is sounding like
but it's important.
It is important.
Yes.
Let's segue into obviously one of the lessons that you take when we're talking about an education. And here we are looking at an education
Sure.
in crisis. Whether we want to accept it or not, the things that are happening currently, it just points to that. Here we are today with primary school teachers going back to school and post-primary school teachers saying it can never be us, not today at least, because certain things are not happening in the way in which they ought to. Capitation released supposedly by the ministry last week to the tune of 21 billion shillings. Maybe will be received by schools this week, even as schools open, but the overarching feeling is one of gloom and doom. What are your thoughts about that, even as we get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation?
Sure. The gloomy feeling around the return to school is bringing a lot of consternation in the parents' plans and thinking. Because when Kupet says strike on and Nat says resumption of school
It's the other way.
proceeds from tomorrow.
It's the other way.
Nat
That
says there's
says
no strike.
No strike, yes.
Yes. Yeah. But Kupet says
Strike is on.
strike is on. Yes. When we get there is a problem because you remember there are some teachers who say that they belong to Kupet even if they're in primary school.
Yes.
And there are teachers who are in NAT yet they are in secondary school. It is important for us to say this situation does not serve neither the nation nor the families because parents have no plan whatsoever. What is important here is a voice of the government. Where is the government taking its own people in the wake of this industrial action? Because fair enough, they have their demands. They had their time to solve these things with the unions, but the union have been giving mixed signals about why we should not go to the streets or why we should go to the street. And I think the issue at hand here has been majorly the JSS absorption of teachers on PNP terms, permanent and pensionable terms. Secondly, there has been issues of completion of their CBA terms in terms of salary increment and such things. So my feeling today goes to the hearts of the parents, especially in the rural places and in the slums, because the urban poor suffers more than the rural poor because one, classes are not sufficient in the cities. Teacher-student ratio is very poor in the urban centers. By the way, urban is worse because even classes are not enough. The schools that we have, there's a constituency in this city that only has one school, public school.
Which one is this?
I think Dagoretti South.
One
public schools, yes. And I think Lenana School has ceded some grounds so that they can construct a new one. This is only one gory story. Nairobi City has the worst access to basic education for learners because there are no spaces to build schools. There are not enough schools.
Just hold on a minute.
Yes.
Worst access.
Yes, it's a least.
Right.
Actually, say least access.
Okay, no, worst is a good word.
Sure.
Because it expresses the extremity. We're looking at the population of Nairobi. What are we now? 7 million?
Yeah, we are approaching 7 million.
Yeah.
Okay, now
6.9, yes.
Okay, now we are saying. No, you are saying actually.
Yeah, sure.
That this population is not well served educationally.
Yes.
And that they don't have enough classrooms. They don't have enough schools, and they don't have enough teachers.
Yes.
Yeah, but then which category of citizen in Nairobi suffers this? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking of a different category who do not have these problems at all.
Yeah. Again, as I said, the people living in the informal settlements that we like calling slums, and then the people who we forget quickly, the urban poor. One, there are no spaces to expand schools. And this is why private and scrupulous people comes with all manner of institutions and call them schools. Okay? And this is where once in a while we will hear accidents happening, schools have gone down. We have a but let me go let's go to the public schools. There is a school in Kibra and another one in Mwiki, Kasarani constituency, that has 5,000 pupils.
Each school has 5,000?
Yes.
Right.
This is a problem because even classes
5,000.
Yes, I think, and it's good that we have been joined by one of the longest practitioners in this sector. One teacher, in an ideal situation, should serve 40 students.
Okay, on that note, let's say a big situation room. Hello to Emmanuel Manyasa, the Executive Director of Usawa Gender, I beg your pardon. Emmanuel, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are you doing?
Sorry, I'm late. I am doing well.
You're doing well. We'll accept the apology, and we will also say that while you were away, you missed a riveting history conversation. Maybe the chances of revisiting that later.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're on a Monday morning, and things with education are up in the air yet again. The last time you were in the room, they were still up in the air, and we were throwing many balls up there, right? Yeah. Or at least trying to juggle them. And just coming off the back of what Zack has just said, from your point of view, with what we have, capitation, maybe. Teachers going to school, maybe. Everything is in a maybe situation. An overview of what's happening today.
Thank you. Allow me to correct the piece of information that Zack just shared about Nairobi having the worst access. It's true that we do not have the number of public schools we should have in Nairobi. And that there are people in Nairobi who even think a public school occupying land is wasting prime land. So I have wondered whether a shopping mall then is superior to a primary school or a public school. But we have ASAL counties in this country where the closest school is 50 kilometers away, and kids have to go to boarding school from grade 1 because there's no school to commute to. I think they have worse access than Nairobi, because Nairobi at least has that option of the low-cost private schools, which are not there in the ASALs because people can't afford them. The urban poor in Nairobi, with all the challenges, they still can afford a low-cost private school, and they're doing so and taking their children there.
Yeah.
We have everything up in the air, unfortunately, because for a very long time, people have occupied positions of leadership, have actually been very operational. They have looked at survival day 1 to day 2 to day 3, and when they leave a problem that is an emergency for the next person. They are always handling emergencies, and everyone is handing over an emergency to the next person. So that today we have a crisis of issues of capitation. Are these children born yesterday? These children were born many years ago. We knew they had been born. We knew the Constitution says basic education is a right for all. So we knew we'll need to educate them. Why are we surprised that they need to be in school today?
Okay, so we're not. It would appear as though we're dealing in an emergency situation all the time. Capitation is due, was due. Okay, let's send something and see if we can settle people. Okay, there was a CBA 2021, 2025. We've had 4 years of that CBA. Then suddenly we're running around and saying, okay, we need to settle out the teachers. Everybody needs their thing to be able to go back. Oh, before you know it, it's September. KCSE, we are. Emergency situation for a situation that has been this way for at least 15 years.
Where's the emergency really?
That's what I'm saying. It looks like it's an emergency, but what is Emmanuel saying? That
people are telling teachers, don't go on strike because now you see we have candidates. It's okay. I don't want the candidates' futures compromised, because KCSE in this country means life everything. And death. It means everything. So we need to make sure the candidates are not, their preparation is not interfered with. But if you made a promise to someone and the person has been patient for years, not months, years, they've been patient, doesn't it occur to you that someday they will try to hold you to ransom? And the teachers are just trying to hold the government to ransom. on that, on the CBA. So for me, it should be obvious that at some point, if you owe, someone will hold your court and tell you now today is the day.
Notwithstanding.
Especially if you've
a
not
moment
spoken to them
will
before.
come, and you have been around Nairobi a long time. You may have seen someone driving a nice car and they are stopped in the middle of the road there with their family, and they tell you, auctioneers run this one. You haven't been servicing the loan. So you and your family, please.
And you've not been talking to us. Had
You've
you
not been talking to us.
Yeah.
You've not been servicing the loan. So you are light. Whether you have many bags in the boot, please.
Well,
So it happens.
By the way, to agree with my brother here, it's important to separate these two issues, the industrial action issue and the capitation, because capitation coming from government does not depend on whether the teachers have their CBA honored or not. Okay? Because CBA is supposed to facilitate, capitation is supposed to facilitate children's learning in school. And this one began with Kibaki, free primary education. Then was advanced by President Uhuru's free day secondary education policy, FSDE. Then went again to TVET institutions, where education has highly been subsidized by capitation of 30,000 shillings, which this government, by the way, has downgraded, all the way up to the universities, where university has been an issue of capitation from day one, when university was only one in East Africa, then split into 3 in East Africa, then now came to every country handling their own higher education. It is important to say capitation should not be a question of discussion. Government should do this as an obligation. Absolutely. Government should not always run as if they didn't know that there's going to be capitation. Fair enough, CBA and honoring of it, industrial actions by teachers may be issues of now and then.
Zack,
but
how do you spell obligation?
An obligation, spelling or meaning?
Spelling.
OBLI, that way? Okay, OOBLI.
I know you know the spelling of obligation. I am halting you right there because you have worked in government.
Yes.
And you understand the principle. This is not a concept. The principle of obligation.
Yes.
Now, when you have a principle and we know what rides on it,
yes,
and what we see consistently, it is how it is disregarded. Now that it's like nullifying that very principle.
Sure.
So the very thing that you say you are supposed to achieve will not be achieved. So if teachers were talking of a strike, even on this basis, they would have a point, because in the absence of that facilitation, the process of teaching becomes near impossible. Now I'm speaking as a teacher. Okay? It becomes very difficult. Doctors went on strike because they didn't have commodities. You've brought yourself to the health facility, but you cannot do what you're supposed to do.
There are no tools. Tools of
cannot do it, and that's the same thing.
Yeah. And now this is what we were saying. Capitation should actually be a more priority, because this one goes years after years, months after months, so that the teachers who are coming, supposing that their issues have been sorted, will find tools of trade so that they can impart the knowledge to the kids. But then you find, because capitation has been an issue of delay, has been an issue of reassignment of funds. It becomes it's a discretionary issue. Unfortunately, it should not be a discretion. But unfortunately, sometimes it appears it is. We should not even discuss about a teacher going or not going to school before capitation is dispensed. A teacher is very important. That cannot be gainsaid. But first, can we make the environment for the teacher who is going to teach, supposing that their issues have been sorted, can we make that environment amiable? Yes, this is a problem, and I think we can. I hope we can
make it amiable.
Yeah, we should actually. We should make it.
No, not should.
Yeah,
you said we can.
We can make it. We have made it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what stops us now?
Now this is why we are here,
Emmanuel,
to discuss why. Yeah.
Do you think that it is intentional to sabotage, essentially, a process that should actually be the vanguard of the very foundations of this country? Because that's what education is. However you choose to look at it, it's a pillar, it's a foundational one. You mess around with it, you mess around with people for life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to believe that someone in their right mind can embark on a mission such as that. I just think that we have failed to put the priorities right, so that we have thrown so many balls in the air, and now we don't know which one of them is made of rubber and we can risk it falling because it will rebound, and which one is made of glass and if it falls it will not just be able to rebound. And education is one of those that are glass balls, because if we introduce failures in education, they quickly reproduce in society.
Yep.
Yeah. So it will be very critical that when we are prioritizing what can wait and what cannot wait, that education is on the list of those things that cannot wait.
Emmanuel Manyasa and Zack Kinuthia are our guests this hour, and we're looking at, okay, with what is happening with education in the country. We're not talking about currently, we're talking about today, whereby schools open today. Some teachers, at least at the secondary level, will not be in school. Because of certain things that were being asked for. Capitation already is late for the year. What is being sent out is actually not for third term.
Late and insufficient.
And insufficient. It's actually not for third term. So we are not even behind. We are just not there. We often want to say what needs to be done, but it seems like the rot is so deep. And I'm just thinking about a dentist, for example, when they're looking at the tooth and they're saying, okay, we can dig out some of this and then we can fill it, with something else. But at some point, the doctor says, we're going to chuck the whole thing. It's absolutely necessary. Are we at that point, Emmanuel?
We don't have an option but to correct things in education. I know that there is funding that is maybe inadequate, but we have also to admit that on paper, what is budgeted for education is the biggest we can get. It's not possible to expand allocation in the national budget to education beyond what it is. What we need to figure out is how to make sure that every shilling that we put in that sector actually works towards the objectives that we have set out to achieve in that sector. And that if we have done that and demonstrated transparency, we can be able to invite other actors to put in more resources to fill the gaps. When Mwai Kibaki became president in 2002, he said we will have free primary education. Remember, he was inheriting an economy that was shrinking.
Yes.
It had grown with negative 2% the previous year. And he said we offer free primary education. And because he demonstrated the will and the commitment, we had other partners coming and putting in money to actualize free primary education. So that is what I think is lacking at the moment. What we are lacking is to demonstrate efficient use of what there is, open up the gaps and invite others to take part. If we go around lying that everything is fine, I think that is a big mistake, because first of all, we are telling those who could have come to our aid that we don't need help, we are okay. And the truth is, we know we are not okay. Because things are going wrong. We have reduced capitation for day secondary education from 22,000, which was set in 2008 when Mwai Kibaki introduced it, to 17,000 today, when the cost of living has almost doubled between 2008 and now. What are we expecting the school managers to do in running schools if the cost of living is doubling and you are reducing the amount being allocated to run schools? It can't work.
Okay, so gentlemen, this standoff is likely to continue. But I have a question to Zack. Having been in government, explain to us the thought process of the whole management of education, especially from the cabinet secretary to the principal secretary, and then cascaded downwards, because there has to be a thinking that does not aid the teachers in making the right decision. There has to be a reason why the government is usually adamant, because strikes usually come towards the third term or towards elections. Unfortunately, when I was in school, 98, I'm going to sit for my national examination, there's a strike. Then I go for my Form 4, 2001, there's a strike. Then I go to Moi University first year, there's a strike. So there must be, was mad with strike throughout. So there has to be a thinking behind this. Why is it so difficult to come to the table and talk? it has to be always threats and intimidation, and it has to be a standoff that often leads to the students and parents suffering. So what is their thought process? Why is it so difficult for government?
Thank you, brother. Those are two questions that I will answer. One is a structure of how things are done, and then the thought about it. First of all, I also grew up in that period where we would wait for solidarity songs in the streets, and we would be happy. I don't know why we would be happy when teachers were striking then. Now we are not happy as parents, but we were happy as students then, hearing that Moi saying that Gesho Aguna Juli. We would run in the streets helter-skelter happy that Moi had added as a day. But fair enough. Let's say this. By the way, under the new constitution, the management of teachers is not under the principal secretary or the cabinet minister.
There's a commission.
Teachers are managed by an independent constitutional commission called Teacher Service Commission, which manages the teachers, pays the teachers, negotiates on behalf of their packs and salaries. And this is now the commission that is at the storm of this standoff, because Nat Kupet has been pushing the TSC to honor some of the CBA agreements that they have had over the time. I think the issue of industrial actions are as old as civilization, and it is a tension that always shall come, because even if today teachers are given their dues and they are honored as the presently standing, there still be some demands tomorrow. So there must be a balance over time of understanding the needs to deliver and the needs also to allow the teacher to live the life they think is befitting of them. Now, the structure is as follows. Education is managed as policy and infrastructure by the government of Kenya. And the spokesperson for that becomes the cabinet secretary, who is the sole voice in the cabinet about education matters. The cabinet secretary has the authorizing power under the Basic Education Act, and the principal secretary, who was called permanent secretary before, is in charge of accounting. The PS must account for every action about education policy and memoranda that has been passed through the cabinet, which we call today Elimu ya Kenya. It is the principal secretary who account for the money, for the action, and for the policy implementation. That is the PS. The PS now is assisted by a litany of directors who are managed by a director general in both sectors. One, primary education, and post-primary, which is secondary education. Now that one goes all the way down to regional director, county director of education. You remember in our time we used to call them DEO. You remember those? DEO would be district education officer. These days they are not called DEO. They are called county director of education, sub-county director of education, coming all the way to where the principal or the headmaster is. So that's the structure, brother, that we have established to manage and to be accountable for the parent sake, which, I mean, we have vested those powers in government, and the government is the one managing education that way. But that one being said, teachers will always blame the government for their packs and their dues. Why? Because it is the government that allocate money to TSC, which now gives the teachers their salaries, their agreements have made through packs. And over time, you will see the buck stops where the TSC says, we ask the parliament to allocate money for this matter, but the parliament did not allocate. So this is where our power ends.
Zack, this morning, when Kupet teachers go on strike, who do you think the parents are looking at?
They are looking at the president.
The commission, the ministry,
no,
the president? Who are they looking at?
The parent is looking at the president, because these are details. What you are saying here in the situation room, these are details. But the person that they elected to ensure the child goes to school, the person that the parent elected in the villages to ensure that education is working, the parent expects the president, whom they delegated their power to through election, to take care of this matter. So the question you're asking me here is actually the question the president should be asking the education managers. The president should say, where that noise is coming from, I don't want to hear. So who is involved? The TSC is involved, is here. the minister is involved is here, the PS is involved is here, and most importantly, the parliamentary arm of Committee on Education, which is led currently by, I think, Julius Meli, and now the Budget Committee should be there. These are the people upon whom the buck stops. So if I was to say a word and say nothing more, I would say the president should summon the cabinet secretary, the principal secretary.
He's been there for 3 minutes.
The commission, the commission secretary, by the way, and then the budget committee and the chair for education, and tell them we need a solution to this matter, no matter the arguments and the reality of our economy and budgeting. That way, we will sort this matter. But the way we keep saying...
Where I start with Emmanuel.
Yes.
The realities tell us right now that we don't have money. Mbadi has started speaking from both sides of the mouth. The other day, we don't have JSS money. Now we have JSS money. This finance bill was bad. Now we have to collect money. Now there are aspects of this finance bill that we have to run. In essence, it looks as if there is no solution for these teachers, and we're in third term. From where you sit, how do you see this progressing?
I think there's going to be the usual things, struggle, threats. When threats can't work, negotiation, maybe another deal that will or will not be honored. But what we need to accept is that there is money. We are not getting our priorities right.
There is money.
Yeah, we have put aside budgets to want to set up universities in Nyandarua, in Kisii, in I don't know where.
Nyamira, actually.
In Nyamira.
Koitalel.
What are these things we are setting up for? They are not even worth their name. But we are spending public funds on them. That is part of the money in the ministry that is, to me, being wasted. This country has more universities than it needs. We should be shutting some down, consolidating, so that we make better use of the resources we have. And the resources are not just money. You're setting up campuses where they start a school of economics, and there is no single economist in the university. So they're relying on people moonlighting around coming from somewhere, and then for years the students will be told, oh, you are taught by a part-timer and the fellow went with the scripts. So you have missing marks, you can't graduate. Why are we spending public funds on these things when we know what requires money right now? So it's not that we don't have money, we are splashing money, maybe for political mileage, at the expense of policy sense.
Yet, what you've just said, Emmanuel, there's a working party that came up with exactly what you've said. They understood these universities are too many. And the very, very variables within them are the ones which necessitate that you merge them. That report is with the president. So you marvel. If you've been told by experts that you must reduce, and then suddenly you're being told increase, so you're thinking, okay, this is what you call vacuum behavior.
Because somebody, in their own senses, believe that a university is a development project.
And a political mileage too.
So I was sometimes back asked to sit in a committee a few years ago to try and establish a university in my home place. And I laughed, and I told the fellow who told me, if I had nothing else to do, I'll spend that time sleeping. Because there are so many universities there
already
that are established. And I asked them, so how many children who qualify from this village qualify to go to university that you want to put up a university for? And even if there are so many, is it in their interest that having grown up in this village, they also study here in the village? If it is not in their interest, whose child do you think will start checking out the map of Kenya to find out where this village is so they can come and learn here? We are splashing public resources on just silly things.
I think that's a very fair point. And before we enter into it, because I think that should be what we exit through, let's finish this basic education by saying the following. This is a very important matter which I also want to ventilate on. Let's say this as a matter of solution and giving our country some form of direction and hope. That the president and his education team And I am surprised that the president has many advisors, but not one on education matters. Okay, which is also part of the reason I would want to tell him he should pick an advisor on education matters, even if you drop the lighting he has on economy. This is it. Article 53 should guide the president of our constitution about the role and the place of education in Kenya. Article 53 is very fundamentally clear that education shall be made accessible and, where possible, free for basic education. Now, Basic Education Act of 2012 goes ahead to define basic education as from pre-primary up to Form 4, which I think will be calling grade 13 or thereabout, or 12 or something.
12,
so this, grade 12. So this one is not a question of granting some form of relief. This is not a favor. Every child born legitimate or illegitimate in Kenya or legitimated through the law must access education without looking like we are doing it a favor. Making education accessible is a wide spectrum of infrastructure, training of teachers, availing of resources, and most importantly, it's important to ensure that it is accessible, as he has said, in ASAL areas. It is free, if not near free, so that every child born of Kenya goes to school. The second issue that should guide the president is that the Declaration of Human Rights, Article 26, makes education a progressive right, but says education is a human right. This is where the world has gone, that all the countries that form part of United Nations, 190 something that they are, must make education a human right. And this was put so that female gender is not discriminated. Remember, there are societies in Africa and Latin America where girl child was not supposed to benefit from education.
Sure.
There are places in rural Europe where women are not considered as part of who should go to education sector. So I think this one was put so that we can safeguard any attempt by rogue governments or by chauvinists to ensure that education is made free for all, and it is a human right. A human right should not be derogated, and the state is not the giver of human rights. Neither do we derive those rights from them. It is important that the president understand this. It is important that the education players understand that we must make Kenya a haven for access to education for all, whether one comes from rural area, urban area, whether one comes from very far-fetched, far-flung areas of our country. Education must be made free. And to go there, this bursary fiasco that we have been hearing, governor is giving bursary, MP is giving bursary, woman rep is giving bursary. As he has said, this wastage of public resources sometimes creates an opportunity for people to pilfer public resources. So we must consolidate all the money that we call money meant to give education to our children and say, what is the cost of a child in primary school? What is the cost of a child in secondary school? What is the cost of a child in TVET institution and university? If this money can be brought together with the donation money that we get from outside the country, we can pool resources and give education for all. So today, we would want to advise the president through the Situation Room to call his minister, to call his PS, to call his commission secretary, the budget chair, and the chair of education committee. Let us get a solution and end this tension that our parents do not know today. Otherwise, tension will increase hatred for the government.
Emmanuel, do you think that it's for lack of understanding that we see the mess that we see currently? That those who are experts in their own field, whether you're looking at curriculum development, whether you're looking at the basic education structure, that it's for lack of understanding, and that's why we don't see the implementation of things that would have essentially sorted out this issue?
No, their camp will tell you that a coat takes the shape of the wearer. Yeah. If you give someone who is very slim, the coat will just look slim. You give, so
it must be nylon, isn't it?
So the core issue is what is the demeanor of the leadership vis-a-vis education. That is what to me is important. I've had people say, let's have someone, an educationist, head the Ministry of Education. I don't believe it. The most successful cabinet secretary for education that we've had in a long time was Mutula Kilonzo.
Why do you say that?
All the other fellows who came after him don't compare.
Not even Matiang'i?
No. Matiang'i he made noise. He set the stage for the mess that we are in, to be honest. Because rushed the implementation of CBC. When Amina said we are not ready, we need a year to prepare, he said chased from the ministry. And we are in a mess because we started to implement without a plan. Prior to implementation, I asked people who are being involved, do you have a costed implementation plan for this system?
And did they?
And there wasn't. And someone in confidence told me, we have 3 versions and government has not signed on any.
So
there was no costed implementation plan and people are running to implement. If you are implementing a program for which you have no costed implementation plan, what are you doing? You set yourself up for resounding failure, and that's where we are now.
Failure.
So we don't necessarily need an educationist to lead the Ministry of Education. We just need a sober person who is going to sit down and look at the laws and implement. We have a Basic Education Act, and it is 2013, not 2012, that provided for establishment of a National Education Board as the body that will advise the CS on all matters of education in the country. Do we have it? We don't. We have violated even the law that we passed in Parliament. We haven't. So are we implementing CBC as designed in the CBC framework? No. We are implementing something else. So what are we going to evaluate in the end when we determine whether CBC has succeeded or failed? Are we going to evaluate what was designed or what we have implemented, which is not what was designed? So we just need common sense to say, this is what we have sat down, consulted, and come up with as a plan, and then follow through the plan. And that is not what we are doing at the moment. So for me, we are in a self-made crisis, but we can actually get ourselves out of it. The issues are not so complex as to keep us here. The issues are, have we prepared for CBC implementation properly? We didn't prepare, we jumped into it. I have said before, if someone pushes you into a swimming pool in your full suit, so you will just have to swim first of all, and then look at
worry about the suit later.
Worry about the suit after you have swum out of the water. But so we are there. Can we swim? Yes, we can. What do we need to do to get out of this mess? Is simply reflect and see that we erred and start retracing our steps through actions that we can do. We have transition of grade 9 right now that is supposed to happen, that people are making all manner of noises about. Teachers' unions have taken very parochial and entrenched positions. And I'm saying this with due respect because many of the union officials are my friends. They've taken positions that have nothing to do with what will happen to the child, but what will happen to our bank accounts should this position be taken. That is a problem. So we need to step back from there and say, what will be in the interest of the child? What will be in the interest of the child is to restore the CBC framework, which envisioned a primary school, a junior school, and a senior school. Now that we got ourselves into this mess, how do we start to get to that path? The way to get to that path is to say we have children in grade 8 who need to go to grade 9. We don't have spaces in primary school. Forget this story that we will build 16,000 classrooms. 16,000 classrooms will not be enough to give each school that is currently providing junior school a classroom. And yet others like Mwiki Primary require more than 20 classes for them to do the transition. But even if you give them money, they have no space to build 20 classrooms. There's no space in Mwiki to build 20 classrooms. So we cannot sit here and pretend that we build classrooms. That is out. We need to transition these children to the empty classrooms in our secondary schools next year. Alliance has 9 streams of Form 1. They'll have 9 empty classrooms in January.
Exactly.
Why don't we transition all the children in grade 8 to the nearest secondary school? government should be formulating guidelines right now on how we will
Around
transition
that.
these children to the nearest secondary school next year.
And
And then start working backwards to the level where we will have schools recategorized the way we had them before. Before 844, we had secondary school that provided O-level only,
Yes.
depending on their capacity. We had, so those can become junior schools only.
yeah.
Then we had those schools that also did A-level,
A-levels, yeah.
depending on capacity. We need to be working on that recategorization.
There's so much that needs to happen. There's so much that needs to be discussed and put it out there for those conversations to be alive. Time doesn't allow us to continue that this morning, but definitely a conversation that needs to happen futurely. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for being here this morning. Zack Kinuthia, former CAS Education, and Emmanuel Manyasa, who is the Executive Director of Usawa Agenda. Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for starting off the week in Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll meet again tomorrow at 6 a.m. God willing. Ken, not so bad, no?
Nope.
We'll do it
Time
again
flies
tomorrow.
when you're having fun.
Indeed. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.